joined by Olin Buchanan, the senior college football writer from Rivals.com. Very privileged to have him with us. Olin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
And thank you for being with us. And Olin, I got to say, I've been reading a lot of your articles in your mailbags, etc., on the Rivals.com page. I love reading those. You always have very interesting topics, and one that you touched on recently, you had a reader ask the question, who, in your opinion, is the dirtiest program in college football? And you went about it very mathematically, I thought, in terms of adding up who has been put on the most probation or who has had the most violations of the last decade or so, and Alabama topped that list, and there were several SEC names in that list as well. I guess my question, based on what you compiled, the statistics you compiled in that question, and also what's going on at Ohio State, what just happened to USC, the rumors surrounding Oregon and Auburn, is college football in probably the dirtiest state it's been in quite some time?
Yeah, probably. I mean, with the amount of money that's out there to be made, and coaches are making more money, programs are making more money, that there's obviously an even greater emphasis on winning than there ever has been. And I think that that emphasis leads to doing whatever you can to win. And I think that in many cases, teams are willing to bend the rules to do whatever it takes to win and make all that money and go those bowl trips. And so I think you go back to that, to the 80s with the Southwest Conference when, everybody, at one point, everybody in the old Southwest Conference, with the exception of Rice and Arkansas, was on probation. There were teams in trouble across the country, but specifically there, and I think that was probably the high point of rule breaking. And it seems like just recently, with all the things that are going on now, that I don't know if it's necessarily as rampant as it was back then, but it sure seems to be, if not as rampant, close.
Well, Olin, would you fire Jim Tressel? And if so, who would you want to replace him, or who would you target to replace him? I know I've seen a lot of people write and speak out saying that Jim Tressel should be fired, and I don't know if he should be. I would think a year-long suspension makes sense. And if someone says, yeah, he should be fired, I can't say I absolutely disagree with that. I'm just thinking that maybe if this is the one incident, I don't think that there's anything else. I mean, there's obviously a lot of factors in this incident, but I think if you look over the course of his entire tenure at Ohio State, that he's done some good things. So I'm not going to be quick to say he absolutely should be fired. I don't think a 5-game suspension, though. I don't think that's enough. I mean, if the NCAA will have play like Des Bryant, who it really didn't seem to do his violation didn't seem to be more than just lying about a couple of lunches that he had with Deion Sanders. If they can say that's reason to take away a player's season, more than half of the season, then I don't see where Jim Tressel's where his violations are less severe. In fact, I think they're more so. So I think he deserves a greater punishment. I don't think 5 games is right. If they come back and say that it should be, like I said, if someone said he should be fired, I don't know that I can make that argue against it. I don't anticipate that Ohio State will fire him. In fact, with the way college football is now, I would anticipate Jim Tressel will be coaching against Nebraska in Ohio State's 6th game of the year, and I'll continue to believe that until they prove me wrong. And so, would you go after Urban Meyer? That is the rumor du jour. Do you think that would be a job he'd even be interested in?
Well, he has some background up around that way. He coached at Notre Dame. He's been a coach at Bowling Green in Ohio. So that's I'm sure that's a top 5 job in the country. But if I needed a coach
I'll put it this way: if I needed a head football coach and Urban Meyer was available, mentally and physically, yeah, that's the guy I'd target. I mean, I don't see how he wouldn't be the most attractive candidate that would be available if he's available.
Another article you had recently, and I found it fascinating, and I don't really know if I have a question in here. I just wanted to compliment you on it, was the article on junior college transfers and your ranking of them throughout the history of college football. I had no idea, and I'm considering myself to be a college football buff, that some of these guys on that list were junior college transfers. For example, Roger Staubach, I had no idea he had gone to junior college first, or I knew O.J. Simpson had, and I figured he would make your list, and obviously Cam Newton is on there as well. Aaron Rodgers, though, I was surprised about that. I just don't remember him, and I keep up with recruiting pretty thoroughly, at least I claim to. And then finally, Mike Rozier, the former Nebraska running back, pretty hefty list right there.
Yeah, there's always a lot of great players come out of junior college, and in fact, when we did that list, I knew that there would be some guys that I would get some readers that would say, hey, you left this guy off or this guy. Everybody would have an argument. Anytime you have a top 10 list, you open yourself up to be second guess, and that's okay. And we actually heard from, the sports information department at Arizona State University saying, hey, you left our guy off. We left guys off like Warren Moon, Ollie Matson, Jackie Robinson, who we all know from baseball. He was a junior college transfer that went to UCLA and played football there. Keyshawn Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, Steve Smith, a lot of great players come out of junior college. Heck, Kansas State built a whole program and turned it into a national power in the 90s with junior college players primarily. So it was fun to look it up and find out that, Roger Staubach had indeed played a year at New Mexico Military Institute, and his team went 9-1 that year and was almost selected to play in the Junior Rose Bowl that year. They got passed over by Tyler Junior College in Texas. So, it was interesting to find out some of those things. And, when we put the list together, we knew we'd be second guess. We figured somebody would call up and say, hey, what about Terrence Cody or guys like that. So, maybe this guy that Jesse Williams that Alabama recruited out of Arizona this year. Maybe 10 years from now, he's the guy that should be on there. But there's going to be great players come out of junior college, and it was a fun project to work on.
Well, there was a great article making the rounds on Twitter the other day that had Joe Pa quoted as saying, "I plan on coaching about another 5 years." The funny thing about that article was it was from 1983 or 1984. Of course, now it's 20, 30 years down the road, and here we are, and Joe Pa's still there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he coached another 5 years, God willing. How old is too old? I mean, do you think Joe Pa can keep doing this for 2, 3, 5 more years?
I don't think so. I mean, only he knows. I think it's pretty clear that the administration, or at least it seems that way to me, that the administration at Penn State is going to let him end his career on his terms. He's 84. It's funny, on my mailbag last week, I had someone ask me if he was going to be, coaching for 20 years. I said, no, I don't think he'll be coaching at age 104. But I think that, he's going to set the timetable. Each year, I believe that it's his last year, and and I'm going to keep believing that. I just don't see how he can continue to coach and the demands that it's going to have at his age. And we all know that other programs are using his age against Penn State in recruiting and telling kids, hey, you don't know who your coach is going to be. And I think at some point, I mean, every year it's got to get more difficult. He's going to slow down that much more. So, I have no inside information on this at all. I'm just guessing that 2011 will be his last season.
And you may be right, and I know that the school would like for him to retire on his own terms, but he may end up retiring on Mother Nature's terms if he doesn't retire soon enough. But I also wonder if something like what happened with Bear Bryant, as soon as he retired, he lost his life basically. I wonder if Joe Pa's ever thought about that and felt like without football in his life, will he actually continue to go on? I hate to be so morbid about it, but I find him just a fascinating individual, and I'm going to go up to the Alabama-Penn State game next year, and I can't wait for it. And we've had some Penn State guys on and interviewed them recently, and I've told every one of them, just tell Joe Pa to hang on till I get there, because I definitely want to see him coach that game in Beaver Stadium. We have the draft coming up on Thursday night, Olin, and I'm sure you'll be watching, and I know that all college football fans will be. It's a fun night. I love the NFL draft. Who would you pick number one?
You know, that's such a great question, you know, because, you know, we all seen all the debate and who has this and who has that. And I think if you're Carolina, if you decide that you're going to go for a quarterback, then I'd go after Cameron Newton. I'd go ahead and take a shot. If it doesn't work out and you don't improve and you're just as bad next year, well, then you can maybe look to trade him and draft Andrew Luck. But I think that, again, I know there are a lot of, you know, criticisms. He's been, like is always the case, you know, they put you under the microscope saying he can't read defense, can't do this, can't do that. But, you know, what he can do is play football. And we saw that up close last year. And on top of that, if you don't take him and he turns out 4 or 5 years from now to be a great quarterback, then you have to live with that. So if I'm going to take a quarterback, I'd go with Cameron Newton. Now, I could also understand if they decided, look, you know, we have some misgivings about him, so let's go at another position, like, you know, taking Marcel Darius. You know, that would make sense to me too. But I'm just saying, if they're going to take a quarterback, if they feel like they need one, they have to do it. That Jimmy Clausen's not their answer, then you know, I'd go ahead and take a shot at Cameron Newton and hope it works out.
Well, you talk about Cameron Newton or Marcel Darius at number one, and that seems to be the general consensus that one of those two players will go in the top spot, and then the other one might go number two or at worst number three. But it to me is so funny to look at this rivalry, the Iron Bowl rivalry, and see that Alabama wins a title, Auburn wins a title. Alabama has a Heisman, Auburn has a Heisman. Alabama's player goes number one, Auburn's player goes number two, or vice versa. It just continues on and on and on. And being from this state, I can tell you I've never seen the excitement level like it is right now, and I've also never seen tempers flare up like I've seen them recently. Finally, I know that this is a softball question, but who is your early favorite for the national championship in 2011?
You know, most people, and I completely understand this, put Oklahoma as their team, as the team that they think will be number one, as the best bet for the national championship. And, you know, when you look at it on paper, I can absolutely understand it. They have a quarterback back, Ryan Broyles, and Kenny Stills, a receiver, a lot of experience back on offense and defense. But, you know, for me, and I'm not saying this because I'm on in your state, but you know, my choice is Alabama. I really like Trent Richardson. I think he's got a chance to win the Heisman Trophy if he stays healthy. I think they still, at Alabama, still have some pretty good receivers, although not the greatness they had with Julio Jones. I think they're going to be really good in the offensive line, so the running game is going to be there. I think the defense is going to be great, so you can't count on scoring more than, you know, maybe a couple touchdowns against Alabama next year. I just think that you know, it's going to be one of those typical Nick Saban teams. You know, they're going to be able to run well and play good defense. I think they're going to be tough to beat. Oklahoma, again, they can put up a lot of points, but I have some questions about their defense. I do think they're going to be a really good team. I think they're going to win 10, 11 games, and you know, I wouldn't discount them as having a chance to win the national championship. But they have some issues on defense, and that, you know, concerns me for them just a little bit. And that's why I just think I think at this time he's just about almost have to take an SEC team. And to me, the best, you know, the team that looks the best in the SEC is Alabama. You know, I don't think it's a small factor that they get LSU at home this year. And I know they're going to have a new quarterback, but hey, they had a new quarterback the year they won the national championship. So, you know, if I had to put my hard-earned money on it, and thankfully I don't, I would go with Alabama.